Hi, I'm Shaka Hislop, and you're here at Extra Time TV.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Extra Time TV. This is Andre Sooklal, and today I'm not alone on the set. I have someone, a special guest today, Mr. Edwin Jusino, all the way from Puerto Rico. How are you, Edwin?
I am super pumped for tomorrow's game.
Yes. So, it's pretty obvious now. We're going to speak about Trinidad Tobago taking on Puerto Rico in the second game of the World Cup qualifying campaign. Trinidad started off with a victory against Guyana, and Puerto Rico, unfortunately, started off with a 1-0 loss. Let's head straight into it, Edwin. What is the team like heading into this game after not really getting off, to a good start in the first game?
Well, I would gather from what I've seen in social media that they're confident, they're cheery. But to be quite honest, I don't expect any difference from what historically has been between Trinidad and Tobago and Puerto Rico. We've played 6 games. 5 of those have been victories for Trinidad, and one tie back in 2008 in a friendly, a 2-2 tie. Mm-hmm. So I really don't expect much. There was a manager change a few weeks before this before the World Cup qualifiers began. So and I'm not against it, but I'm just saying that change had to have been done a few months before, because we had a crap coach, a very, very bad coach, and just look at the results he had in the League of Nations. We had Guatemala basically having 12 goals against us in both games. So I'm not expecting miracles. If we lose 1-0 against Trinidad and Tobago, that for me is a small victory. It's not the result we would love. Mm-hmm. Right now, Puerto Rico, it does not depend on itself to qualify, mm-hmm. because we lost against St. Kitts. When you look at the way that that this first stage is set up, right? You lose 2 games, you're out. So if you lose against Trinidad, that's it. That a lot of different things have to happen. Trinidad and Tobago would have to lose against Bahamas and St. Kitts, and that's not reality. And you already beat the other contender for the group, which is Guyana. So I'm just saying tomorrow, Trinidad and Tobago could be on its way to the next round, hands down. If they beat Puerto Rico, if we actually beat Trinidad and Tobago, I will be happy about it. Yeah. But again, I'm not expecting miracles, because I'm trying to stay as grounded to reality as much as I can, because I don't want to be up in the air and say no, we're gonna beat Trinidad, and I didn't have high expectations for St. Kitts. I expected at least a tie, mm-hmm. or at least to win 1-0. We've never beaten St. Kitts, and we've never beaten Trinidad and Tobago, so I'm not expecting anything different from what history can teach us.
Interesting. I noticed you brought up the change in managers over the last couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. You obviously did not mince words with the previous one. So what makes this manager different?
Well, Dave Sarachan actually has United States men's national team experience. I think he was assistant coach to in the for the Russia 2018 qualifying tournament. So he has experience at least at a high level in professionalism, which is something that we need in Puerto Rico. But again, you're bringing a very good coach and you're giving him 2 weeks, maybe,
Yeah.
to get ready to use the players that were already picked for him to try and make him to try and do a miracle because you think that you're gonna be able to go and drink wine with your buddies in Qatar. Because let's face it, the only ones who are dreaming of Qatar are the members of the FA, of the Puerto Rico FA. Everybody else is we're we would be happy if we got to the second round. We haven't done that since 2008.
Small.
So, I mean, Sarachan's a very good coach. From what I've from from the information I've gotten from the United States, from um, you know people I know back in the mainland and people that know the guy. Um, but I mean, he could be Pep Guardiola, and he still wouldn't be able to make us win against St. Kitts and against Trinidad and Tobago, because to be quite honest, it's not football is not you wave a magic wand and everything's gonna change. You have to do changes at appropriate times, and the federation president had the perfect opportunity to get rid of a mediocre coach and then bring in somebody that actually knows what they were doing a few months ago, when when my media when my website reported that the former coach had been accused of what's the word in English? He had been accused by his former partner of being abusive towards her.
Yeah.
So she got a protection order and actually went to the and I had to go to the had to go to another to the courts and try to settle that out a few years ago, which is something that you tend to want to tell your employer about, and he never did. He never revealed those things. And the reason why he never revealed those things is because he was a personal friend of the president of the federation. Because that's the only reason. That's the only way that a mediocre coach like him gets to be, national team coach. It's because he was a personal friend of a very young and very manipulative president.
Wow. So it seems Puerto Rico definitely has its share of problems. I mean, we have our problems that are well documented in Trinidad and Tobago. But, folks, in case you're wondering why we chose a special guy today, he has unique insight. And, he's the chief editor of the footballboricua.net. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Football Boricua.
Boricua. See, I'm working on my pronunciation. Boricua. Okay, so yes, that's a little better, don't you think?
You sounded Spanish there.
Oh, you see, I'm like 1/16 Spanish, maybe, so I've been told. But anyway, back to the football stuff. So let's talk tactics. Trinidad and Tobago, we have our former England international Terry Fenwick as the coach. He favors the 4-3-3. His formation is pretty standard. Tell me about the style of play of your current coach and Puerto Rico.
Well, if I remember correctly, the way that that Sarachan lined up our team was 4-4-1-1. I am expecting no changes whatsoever.
Okay.
Maybe a 4-4-2, but a more defensive one. Because of course, I don't think Sarachan would think that we can win. Maybe he could try and go for the tie, try to work as a tie, and maybe if we surprise and do a surprise, we surprise Trinidad. You're going up against us, and in a counterattack, we make a miraculous goal. That might be something that I see Puerto Rico playing for.
Mhm.
But again, we've only we couldn't see Puerto Rico playing against St. Kitts. All I can tell you is the formation, because that's the formation that was given to us by the federation before the game, because we haven't seen Sarachan or this Puerto Rican national team play under Sarachan, because there was no feed for the St. Kitts Puerto Rico game.
Oh my gosh.
So, St. Kitts didn't want to broadcast their game for some odd, weird reason that only they would know. So yeah, it's very hard for me to talk to you about my team
Mhm.
currently, because I have no reference, no visual reference. I can tell you what I think they're gonna do.
Mhm.
I can tell you the formation that they started with in against St. Kitts. I can tell you that we have a very bad forward. The team captain, he hasn't. The last goal he made was against Dominican Republic back in January, and it was in a penalty. It wasn't even, he hasn't scored a goal outside the penalty, outside of a penalty, in 3 years, and he's a nationalized player. He's not a Puerto Rican born. He was nationalized, and I think that if you're going to nationalize a player, it should be somebody that actually is better than any other person that you have potentially access to in the island or in the diaspora.
Mhm. So
And
are
I
you
don't know.
saying that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And I think we have at least one or two players in the island that could be better than him, that have more. Let's just say they have more experience playing at a D1 level, and actually playing in a FIFA qualifier.
Mhm.
So heck, I'm not the person in charge of making those decisions. But when you look at history, and you look at at, at things that have happened in the past, and you look at what's being done right now, it's just wonder, what are they thinking? Because
Wow.
you left. I'm gonna give you one name. You left out Hector Pito Ramos, which is the which has made, if I'm not mistaken, around 8 goals, and that's the. I may be mistaken about the amount of the goals,
Mhm.
but at least in World Cup qualifying, he has made 4 goals, which is the most any player playing for Puerto Rico has done in 26 games that we have played for FIFA qualifiers.
Wow. So things are not
So
looking positive at all.
I don't want to, I'm trying to be as neutral as possible, even
Mhm.
though I should be rooting for my country.
Mhm.
Um, but I can't, as a historian, because I'm first and foremost a historian. I can't say history is on our side.
Mhm.
This will be the very first time we play against Trinidad Tobago in a World Cup qualifying game, and things are different when it's a friendly versus a World Cup qualifying game. That it's win or go home, and it is actually win or go home for Puerto Rico. Maybe if the players have that mindset, but we're talking about very young players also. I have, maybe you can tell me the average of the Trinidad and Tobago players, but the average for the Puerto Rico players is around 21 years.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a very young group of players. If I were if I were the president of the federation, and I just basically throughout the coach that I had invested political power and influence to keep, I wouldn't be expecting anything from this, or at least from these 4 games. I would be focusing on two other tournaments. I would be focusing on the upcoming CONCACAF Nations League tournament, and maybe try to get from League C up to League B, actually win a group. And the other thing that I would be more focused for would be the possibility of, since Puerto Rico might be the host of the 2022 Central American and Caribbean Games, maybe we could, I would focus more into, let's try and beat our record from 5th place, and maybe get bronze in the Central American Caribbean Games that are going to be played in that would be played in Mayagüez if it's awarded to the island.
Wow. So essentially, just gathering from, your very valuable insight that Puerto Rico definitely has so many problems, that you're saying that essentially this qualifying campaign is really pretty much like a training preparation for upcoming tournaments, that it's very unrealistic to expect anything other than just getting these young guys ready.
If we were talking, if we were to have this conversation March 2020, I would say no, I'm actually optimistic because of the quality. And I'm not saying that they're bad players. We have very good quality players. We have players that are playing in the MLS. We have players that are playing in the USL. Most of the players aren't. There's some players that played in the local league, but I'm gonna call it out. The local league is rubbish. So I don't expect anything good coming from that league.
Okay.
But the federation took some of the players that they think were good, which we could argue that they maybe are or maybe aren't, and they took them to Bolivia to play in the 2nd division, so to give them some playing time before the qualifiers, because we've basically been, this would be the 2nd year in 10 years that we don't have our league running. The first time was during Maria in 2018. We didn't have football from 2018 to 2019. And then, I'm sorry, from 2017 to 2018. I skipped a year. And then now, because of the 2020 pandemic, the league was cut short. So the federation has been forced to recruit players from the diaspora and nationalize and use players that were nationalized before them. Because I gotta admit that the captain of our team, if you give me like a few minutes, I can give you his name. Sidney Rivera. Sidney Rivera. He was nationalized by the former administration. But in the former administration, he was he wasn't a starter. He becomes a starter during the current administration, but he was nationalized by them. So they're using nationalized some of the nationalized players and diaspora players that that are Puerto Rican blood, that were born and raised in the United States, and some players that actually were born and raised here, but are actually playing either at the university level or at USL level in the United States.
Wow. So, it's interesting to get this information from you because, to be honest, I was trying to do my research and it was very difficult to get a lot of information on.
Most of it is in Spanish.
Yeah. And I mean, there is Google Translate, but, I've just, I said, I'll just come straight to
don't trust. Do me a favor, never trust Google.
Yeah, I don't trust it at all. So we decided, folks, we're going to speak to Edwin and get the actual thing. So, okay, so, you gave me some good insight into the problems that Puerto Rican football has. You're basically saying that they have so many problems, and Trinidad and Tobago has their problems. That would be a whole other show if we decided to talk about that. But based on the context of this game, you mentioned a couple players from the MLS and guys who are preparing. Are there any particular players that you think would be key if Puerto Rico was to have a chance in this particular game?
Okay, so one of the main players that obviously comes to mind is Ricky, which is the other forward. If he were managed, he's actually playing in Spain, and I think it's third division Spain. So, and he has had a very few good years of actually goal scoring. So I think he could be key, and it'll also depend on how good the Trinidad and Tobago defense is. There's one player there. I at least there's something I'm actually very happy about is that we actually have a good defensive line. Um, it was proved we saw them in action against Dominican Republic in Guatemala back in January, and even though we lost against Guatemala, they held for 75 minutes to a 0-0 draw. We lost 2-0, and that was Guatemala was actually angry that they didn't that they won for 2-0. So that's at least something positive. I'm not expecting. I'm trying to be hopeful here. I'm not expecting an 8-0 or a 9-0 from Trinidad and Tobago, which would actually surpass the amount of goals, the historic amount of goals that Trinidad and Tobago has done to Puerto Rico in one game, which is, depending on how you look at it, it's either an 8-1 or a 7-0. So if you have an 8-0 or a 9-0, and you're breaking the record and you're establishing something new, and that would be hurtful for me. But I mean, so I'm not expecting a game. I'm actually expecting Puerto Rico to play more of a bunker and counterattack style. That's what they were. That's what they were practicing in January. I don't know if that. Again, I couldn't see Saracen, and the team that he set up against St. Kitts. So I'm just speculating here a little bit.
Yeah.
Based on January and what was trying to be done, because the federation had this idea that they wanted to standardize a form of play for Puerto Rico, that they wanted to create a playing identity for the island. But that doesn't happen with a wave of a magic wand. So if they're following their plan, they might be, they might have, there might be some modifications, but what will be happening is you're going to see a lot of play through the wings, and a lot of pushing through the wings. If we play any type of try to do any type of style or attack formation. What I'm thinking is going to happen is you're going to see Puerto Rico bunker down in front of the goal and try to create some sort of counterattack to try to get our forwards in Ricky and our friend that I just mentioned, the ball.
Well, that's very interesting because Terry Fenwick, I've actually worked with him around him when he was at club level, and he seems to really favor that 4-3-3 formation. So I mean, it makes sense they would try to do a counter-attacking style of play. Sit back and try to catch our line when it's high up. And maybe see if the defense buckles, because Trinidad and Tobago has their problems as well. I mean, I would have never known how many problems Puerto Rico would have had if we didn't speak today. But Trinidad has a lot of problems, a lot of issues, off the field. In addition to COVID-19, which has been affecting everyone. We have clashes with style of play and also infighting, reported infighting within the group, which coaches came out and said that that's completely a non issue. Then we have people who are highly critical of the national team and their preparation style. But then they got a pretty good result against Guyana, against what Trinidadians consider, Trinbagonians consider was not really ideal preparation. So I could understand the thought process of using a counter-attacking style of play. I probably would have done the same thing. And, maybe, as I said before, catch the, sucker punch Trinidad and Tobago, pull them in and then catch them on the high line. You said you have some attacking players that, especially the one playing in Spain, that could be a problem.
So I got the entire roster for the game against St. Kitts. This is what you might actually get. You might actually get Cody Lorandi, which is a goalkeeper that was playing in the USL Championship with Oklahoma's Energy.
Yeah.
Until last year. He's a really good goalkeeper. That's why I'm saying I don't expect a lot of goals because we have a good defensive line. I'm not saying it's impossible to beat. I'm just saying it's a good defensive line. It's maybe one of the best defensive lines I've seen in my 12 years as a journalist covering the sport in Puerto Rico. So then you have Gonzalez, Rosario, Cardona, and Rios. Cardona was recently signed to the USL Championship as well. So again, you have very good talent in that back four. Then you have Isaac Anking, who's playing for New England Revolution. He was in the New England Revolution B, and then he was. And if I understand this correctly, he actually had some good games during the MLS Cup. He came in as a reserve during some games during the MLS Cup of 2020. For 2020 last year. Then you have Diaz, then you have Devin Vega, and then you have Jaden Servania. Jaden Servania was the top scorer for the U20 side in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. That if you can look it up, the Puerto Rico played, I think it was the semifinals against Mexico, and we lost 2-1. Jaden Servania was part of that group. If I'm sorry, that would be the U17s. In 2019 January, he was the top goal scorer for Puerto Rico's U20s. And his brother Brandon plays. I think he only played once for the U.S. men's national team, and now he's going through the cool down period to supposedly join the Puerto Rico national team. I think it's next year that he's available. And then you have Ricky Rivera and then Sidney Rivera. They're not brothers. They have nothing in common. They're not brothers. One is a nationalized player, which is the Sidney Rivera, the captain, and then Ricky Rivera, which is the number, or at least according to this roster, he's the number 9. He's playing in Spain, in third division, if I'm correct.
This definitely has opened my eyes to a lot of things that I would have never known. Never known. But unfortunately, we're going to have to end things off. Just going back to the game now. We discussed tactics, we discussed formations, we discussed the problems that you guys are facing.
I did forget one little thing about about our team.
Oh, go ahead.
I also forgot Wilfredo Rivera.
Uh-huh.
Wilfredo Rivera was recently signed by Orlando City of the MLS. Yes, he was playing for USL Orlando City's team. He came up in the academy, and he just signed his first pro contract with Orlando City for the MLS. So he's going to be playing. I don't think he's going to be in the starting 11, but we will be able to see Wilfredo Rivera playing in Orlando City roster starting next month.
Wow, interesting. Well, now I'll pay attention to him as well. So, now that we discussed all those things, I don't usually like to do predictions like final scores, but, we'll just have at it. How do you think this game is going to turn out? What do you think the final outcome is going to be?
Well, I'm going to give you the same prediction I gave to when it was asked about the St. Kitts game by Nathan Carr. Nathan Carr
is a good guy. Yeah.
He's a really good guy, and he's a very passionate follower for St. Kitts and Nevis national team. I don't know if he lived in St. Kitts. I know that he lives over in England, but he's a great guy. He asked me, and I said, listen, I think whoever wins is going to win by 1 goal.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a very close game. Puerto Rico is going to play very defensively. I think from the little that I saw against the Guyana game, Trinidad and Tobago is going to come out, be pressuring up front, and there, in those two styles are going to collide, and that's when Puerto Rico might be able to take advantage of so much pressure that in a counterattack it can potentially score a goal. But at the same time, if it doesn't do it in the very first 75 minutes, I would say that maybe Trinidad and Tobago can take advantage of being, tired and playing in a very hot environment, because that's another thing. You're playing right next to the beach.
Yeah.
In Mayagüez. It's going to be hot and very humid, which is nothing new for us Caribbeans.
Yeah.
But again, remember that most of these kids or most of the players that are playing for Puerto Rico usually play in the United States, which is different climates. So after the very first 75 minutes, Trinidad and Tobago, if it's still 0-0, I see potentially more options for Trinidad and Tobago to win 1-0. But then again, Puerto Rico managed to just lose 1-0 against St. Kitts, and that goal came at the end of the first half. So it'll depend on a lot of factors. I'm just touching on a few. That's why I don't garner to say, well, we're gonna, I wouldn't never try to say, well, Puerto Rico's gonna win 2-0, or Trinidad and Tobago's gonna win 1-0, because there's so many factors. I haven't seen Puerto Rico play. Like I said, when they played against St. Kitts, it was, old timey rating updates from FIFA. So I can't garner. I wouldn't dare to even say if we're going to lose or win. All I could garner say is that I think that whomever wins is going to win by a 1 goal. Whether it be 2-1, whether it be 1-0, or whether it be 3-2, I just think it's going to be a 1 goal difference. So it's going to be a very close game.
I agree. I actually think it's going to be very similar to what you said. I think it's going to be a tight game, a clash of styles, counter-attacking versus, the proactive Terry Fenwick style. Which is, go on the front foot from the very beginning. That's the style he likes. That's the style I've seen him play before with his club before that he coached in Trinidad and Tobago. So we'll see. It's going to be an exciting matchup, and we'll definitely, folks, you can let us know what you think in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, let us know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And, Edwin, this has been really an amazing discussion we had with you, and we'll definitely follow up with this after the game, because as you said, there's a lot of factors. It's not as simple as just simply calling a scoreline. There's a lot of variables in there that can affect both teams. So it's definitely a very interesting game to look forward to, folks. So we'll see how it goes. Being a Trinidad and Tobago person, I hope we win. But of course, I wish best of luck to you and your country. And both of us, our countries have our respective difficulties, which we'll talk about. Definitely we'll talk about in future. I really love the discussion we had. And we'll see how it goes.
Just a reminder, everyone, for more episodes with Shaka Hits Luck, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more updates, interviews, and content.